Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason. I'm speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas, and today I am continuing my top 100 albums list. Today I'm doing albums number 94 and number 93. So I've already done six of them so far. If you want to look on my channel, I've already done six reviews, and so we're still in the 90s, so still pretty early into the count, into the list. And yeah, so let's go with number 94 on my list, which is With the Beatles by the Beatles. This is my first entry of a Beatles album, one of 12 albums that are on my list. Actually, this is my least favorite of the Beatles albums. Still, I really enjoy the album. I'm a huge Beatles fan, have been for a long time. So I've listened to all their albums so many times. I'm so familiar with them, and so I cannot not put all their albums on my list because I know them so well and I enjoy all of them. More extent, this one not as much, but still not terrible album to listen to. Um, this came out in 1963. It is their second studio album. Um, there's 14 songs. Pretty much all Beatles albums. These are the UK albums. It came out in UK. Didn't come out in the United States. But UK albums all had 14 songs on them for some reason. It's the way they wanted to do it. Out of all the songs, it's hard because I know them all so well. I'm trying to think of what are the more well-known songs. I think maybe It Won't Be Long, All My Loving, Please Mr. Postman, maybe one of their most well-known cover songs. Money, That's What I Want. It's probably another pretty common cover song. Roll Over Beethoven, maybe another one you hear um, by the Beatles, along with the original by Chuck Berry. There are some of the more well-known songs. There's probably more songs that aren't as well-known on this album. Um, just like the first album, Please Please Me, it was the first Beatles album in the UK. It covers about 8 originals and 6 cover songs. So not yet. Later on, it's all Beatle originals. But at this point, they kind of did just some covers and some originals. Still early in their career. They're still not. They're definitely, cause they're the biggest band by this time in the UK. They haven't come to the United States yet until 1964. So um, they definitely are getting the reputation of being great songwriters. Lennon and McCartney, especially, of course, are getting known as well songwriters at this point. They're still kind of early in their songwriting career. So I don't know if they just didn't trust them enough to do a whole Lennon McCartney album quite yet. That would come soon, though, with the next album. Um, and so a lot of people put this, I think, usually anytime I listen to a list of favorite Beatle albums or listing the Beatle albums, with the Beatles usually at the very end, it's pretty common. I think the biggest reason why is because of the cover songs. Most Beatle fans love the originals, and they love albums that have all original songs because Lennon McCartney is the greatest songwriting duo for sure. I think that's pretty well agreed on by the community and by all music lovers. Um, and so this really takes a hit because of the cover songs. Even if the cover songs are good, a lot of Beatle fans don't like them as much just because they're cover songs. Which I don't know. There's some of the cover songs are really good on here. There's a couple good ones I think. Um, and I'll go through that here in a little bit. Of course, if you don't know, the members of this band, John Lennon, who does rhythm guitar, does some lead vocals, of course, backing vocals. Paul McCartney, also another good lead vocalist. A lot of good backing vocalists, a lot of good harmonies with him and John and George. And Paul is also mostly known for playing the bass guitar and then some piano. And then George Harrison's the lead guitar player and also he leads on a couple songs. And does, of course, a lot of backing vocals. And then Ringo does the drums and does lead sings on one song. They usually give Ringo one song per album. Now, the thing with the Beatles is uh, this album came 8 months after their first album, Please Please Me. So they had two albums in the same year, 1963. Please Please Me, then With the Beatles. which I'd say with the Beatles, maybe one of the most uncreative names I've heard for an album. They didn't use a lot of creativity yet for the Beatle albums with the Beatles. Um, Pretty generic name for album. But at this point, the Beatles were kind of new. They're just getting into being hit songwriters. Of course, Please Please Me, Love Me Do were the first hits that they had. And then they came out with the first album, big hit. They became starting to become Beatlemania starting in the UK. Um, and then, of course, you want to hit the iron while it's hot, so you want to make another album. Of course, Lennon McCartney's starting to really get on a roll writing wise, because then they have singles like She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand, which are huge number one singles. There's another one in there I'm forgetting on top of my mind that was a number one single along with that. So they had three like number one singles in between Please Please Me album and the With the Beatles album. So at this point, I mean, they're just the biggest thing in the UK. They're kind of gaining this reputation as being great songwriters. Still, they want to, of course, get another album out as quick as possible, it seems. And so here comes With the Beatles, comes out in 1963, and so they do the same thing. You know, instead of just having, I mean, it would have been better if they just had Lennon McCartney just write all the songs and 14 songs. You would have had a much better album, but they decided it's much easier to get 8 songs and then just cover the 6, because the Beatles did a lot of cover songs because they did a lot of concerts, of course, and so before they became songwriters, they were just doing cover songs, like in Germany, and they did a lot of playing there in Germany. They were playing all cover songs. They didn't have any originals to play, and all across Liverpool, in the Cavern and so forth, they were the Casbah. They were playing cover songs, so they were, I think, essentially the best cover band in the UK. I mean, especially probably the United States and all over the world. They were a great cover band. They didn't yet establish themselves as a great, original songwriting band. And so they had a lot of covers that they could do, and a lot of famous people. Like you got Chuck Berry songs, Smokey Robinson with "You Really Got a Hold on Me," "Money That's All You Want" is pretty well known cover song. "Please Mr. Postman Man" was a really well known real well known song before. So it's pretty easy to come up with a good cover song because people already know the song and they already know it's a good song. It definitely helps when you have a great band like the Beatles playing the cover song that people already like. So I guess it makes sense from that standpoint. Of course, looking back, you wish they would have just been all Lennon McCartney songs and no cover songs. Except there's a couple cover songs I would have kept on here that I think are actually pretty good. So I say all that to say that the big problem with this album, why it could have been higher on my list, it could have been one of the greatest albums really of all time, is if they would have added some of their number one singles. For some reason at that time, they decided to leave off the number one singles and have just, here's the singles, and then they make an album with none of the singles. I guess you get more Beatle content that way. But it lessens the album, of course, because can you imagine if he had this album with the Beatles, with "She Loves You," "I Want to Hold Your Hand," like "This Boy," "Thank You Girl," and I'm forgetting another one. But there's probably 5 really good songs there that never were on an album. That you put that on this album, you take off the 4 or 5 worst songs on this album, cover songs, you take them out, or take all the cover songs out, add those 5 songs in. This is one of the greatest albums of all time. It goes way up the list, which is to me kind of unfortunate that they didn't do that, because it'd been a really great album if they did that. So saying that, there's no singles coming off this album because all their singles were separate from the album. So they actually didn't have any singles, which is kind of strange. Usually you have an album, then you have some 2 or 3 singles. Your 2 or 3 best songs also chart as singles. But in the United States, there were 2 songs off of here that came off of singles. One was "All My Loving," which went to number 45 in the United States, and then "Roll Over Beethoven" went number 68 in the United States. "All My Loving" makes a lot of sense. That's one of their best songs on the album. "Roll Over Beethoven's," I'm kind of surprised that it's a George-led song. It's one that George plays almost every concert. It feels like every time I see concert footage, George loves to sing the song and play the guitar, because it's got a great, of course, Chuck Berry's got a great guitar part. To me, it's not that great of a song. It's one of my least favorite on the album. So, but it was probably a big hit for Chuck Berry, I'm sure. So that's why it came out in the single in America. Of course, it didn't chart in America, like I said, it didn't come out. UK it was number one, of course. The Beatles, at this point, are so huge, or that they came out with an album just singing nursery rhymes and it would have went number one. That's how big they were at the time, I think. So anything they put out was going to be number one in the UK, and then eventually when they get to the United States, they're going to go number one too. Um, it did hit on the Rolling Stones 500 Greatest Albums in 2003, so a while ago. It did come out at number 420, so actually made the Rolling Stones Greatest Albums list, 500 Greatest Albums list. I don't think that's the last time it was on there. I don't think it was on there since. They've done like three lists on there. So in the UK, it was certified gold. It says U.S. gold, Canada gold. That was much later. Maybe it charted at gold. So it did get a gold certification. Um, and I think I've talked quite a bit about kind of the album and why. Uh, it's the Beatles. It's got great catchy music, great harmonies. Uh, it's not some of their best material, but still, the Beatles' least material, still great material. That's how good they are at this time. Like I said, I do agree. I wish the 14 songs is a little too much. I think I would have been happy if they would have taken out like two of the worst songs, probably. Made it 12 song. Of course, I would loved if they would have had "She Loves You" or "I Want to Hold Your Hand" on there. Would have made this so great. Um, Still, it's an enjoyable album. It's definitely my least favorite, but still one that I listen to here and there. So I'll go to here are my top three songs on the album. Number three is "Please, Mr. Postman." I believe in my opinion, is the second best cover song from the Beatles. It's a really good cover song, and it's a decent original song too. I don't listen to the originals very often. I usually listen to the Beatles version, but I believe it was kind of a Motown. I think it was a girl group. And what's so great about the Beatles is they took different genres and covered them so well. Like you got the Chuck Berry's, a really good original rock and rollers like Chuck Berry. They never did an Elvis one, but they did like Chuck Berry. Uh, they did Buddy Holly once, Carl Perkins. They did many times. So they love doing these original rocker, 50s rocker songs. But they do some good Motown too, some girl groups, guy groups. Like I said, you got a Smokey Robinson song on here. You really got a hold on me. And he would say Smokey Robinson's song is a lot better, but they took that song and made it a good three-part harmony band song. And like I said, they took "Please, Mr. Postman," which was um, a girl group song, I believe, and turned into a good rock, good band song. A song I don't have in my top three, just barely missed it, was "Till There Was You." It's actually a cover song I really quite like, and it's from a musical called "The Music Man," done by Meredith Willson. And so they took a song that was popular in a musical and made it kind of a nice little pop song for them, led by Paul McCartney. I've heard some people say they don't like the song at all. It's one of their least favorites. Actually, it's one of my favorites on this album. Actually, not one of my favorite all times for the Beatles, but still, I think a really good cover song. Anyway, so I barely missed my list, but yeah. So three, Please, Mr. Postman, really good, catchy song. Number two is "All My Loving," the first or third song on here. It's my number two, "All My Loving." It's a solid Beatle tune, I think. One of the best on this album, of course. And then number one is the first song on this album, which is "It Won't Be Long." Another really good, catchy tune for the Beatles, and just one of the number of solid songs that they were writing at this time. They wrote so many good ones. This one's probably not one of the top ones, but still, because their top ones were so good, this still was a really good song, I think. Anyway, so that's my top three for this album. So now we're going to go from with the Beatles, number 94, to my number 93 favorite album, which is "Turn, Turn, Turn" by the Byrds. And this album came in 1965. This is their second studio album, and we have 11 songs on here. Obviously, the most famous one is their title song, "Turn, Turn, Turn," which is a huge hit for them. That's the only song I think that's really famous on here, or really well known, that really did well in the charts. Um, Did a couple. They did some originals, and then they like to do a lot of cover songs. Also, they love covering Bob Dylan songs. They're very good. Jim McGuinn, the guitar player, is really good at arranging music to fit the folk rock style, which is, the Byrds were like the inventor of folk rock. They were really good at it. Jim McGuinn's a lot to thank for that. He's so good at arranging music, I think, and he's really good with the Bob Dylan tunes. And they were friends with Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan, enjoyed their music and liked what they did with his songs. And on this, he got two Bob Dylan songs. "Lay Down Your Weary Tunes," not a real well-known one, not a great one. But then the other one is "The Times They Are Changing." It was, I think, one of my favorite Bob Dylan songs. So they take one of his well-known songs and come on here as well. And they got some other, couple other, it's mostly original. It looks like not a lot of cover songs, but which is good. I think I like it when a band does more original work than cover other bands, other artists. Even though, like I said, Byrds are pretty good at covering other artists. I think, like Bob Dylan. Um, so the members of the Byrds, like I said, Jim McGuinn, he was the lead guitar player. He's real well known. He has the Rickenbacker 12-string guitar, I believe. Kind of like the Beatles had like a Rickenbacker. They started with the Rickenbacker guitar, so it has this twangy sound. It has a kind of a unique sound to it. The Byrds are really well known for that kind of sound, and thanks a lot to Jim McGuinn, who was a really good guitar player at this time. Not splashy as some of the later ones, but does real good work here. And he does a lot of lead vocals on some songs, and of course a lot of backing vocals on here. Gene Clark, he plays some rhythm guitar, plays some harmonica, does the tambourine. A lot of times, if you see the Byrds live, he's the one with a tambourine. He usually doesn't have an instrument most of the time. He also did a lot of lead vocals, and he was really their top songwriter. He wrote most of their material at this time. Then you got David Crosby. He did rhythm guitar and backing vocals. He didn't do a lot of lead vocals, more backing vocals. And then Chris Hillman on bass, and Michael Clark was on drums. Michael Clark, no relation to Gene Clark. So they had 3 singles coming out of this album. Of course, the biggest one was "Turn, Turn, Turn," which was a Peter Seeger song. So it's a cover song, actually. Peter Seeger took the song from the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible, made a song kind of taking words out of the scripture, and then Jim McGuinn took that and kind of arranged it for the Byrds anyways, and did a great job. And that went number 1 in the U.S., which, no surprise, that's definitely one of the top songs ever. Surprisingly, it went number 26 in the UK, so I'm surprised it didn't get number 1 in the UK, but I'm glad it got number 1 in the U.S. Definitely deserves the number 1. Then their second single was "Set You Free This Time," song written by Gene Clark and led sang by Gene Clark. It went number 63, so not great. Didn't hit the top 50. So really only one really, like I said, hit song was "Turn, Turn, Turn." And then it says the third single, "It Won't Be Wrong." I couldn't even find a charting for it, so it doesn't look like that song even charted, which is too bad because it's a good song too. I actually quite like it. It was written by Jim McGuinn and led sang by Jim McGuinn, and it's a good song. So on the album charts, it charted number 17 in the U.S. and number 11 in the UK, so not too bad. Top 20 in both, almost top 10 in the UK, so it did pretty well, I think, overall in charting. Thing I found when I was researching this album is this is their second studio album. But, sorry, I heard a door. So moving around upstairs. The core of this band was Jim McGuinn, Gene Clark, and David Crosby kind of created this band, this folk rock band, the Byrds, or something else before the Byrds. And of course, it was because of their 3-part harmony that was so great that made this band so what it is, one of the great bands, I think, of the 60s. And after this album, Gene Clark basically quit the band, and this was the last album with all 3 together. And Gene Clark was such an important part to this band, I think. Like I said, he was the main songwriter, he was a lead singer, he was probably the best singer in the band. So it was very important. When he left, I think the Byrds never were as good as when he was there, So it's unfortunate. The Byrds could have been so much better, I think, and had such longevity if they would have kept together. But there's a lot of tension at this time with the Byrds, from what I've read. Um, Part of tension was Gene Clark. He was getting paid more money because he was getting money from songwriting along with being in the band, and so there's some jealousy over, from what I read, that the other band members were jealous of Gene Clark because of that, and so a lot of times they were kind of pushed to keep Gene Clark's his main songs that he was writing. They kept them off the albums or made them B sides, and kind of left them so they weren't the A side singles. And of course, this made Gene Clark mad that his music was being pushed aside because of that, because they were jealous and they were upset, which is too bad because I think Gene Clark's songs are probably my favorite on here, as I'll talk about. He's got about 3 songs on here that he wrote and led sang. So it's too bad there was a lot of tension in the band. It kind of hurt them because, like I said, he left. And then I think they did a third album. And after that, Dave Crosby got kicked out of the band because he's a druggie and he was late to rehearsals and he was doing all kinds of stuff that they didn't like. So eventually the band became just Jim and Gwen, basically. It was really the leader of the band after that. So this was really the last album with that core group, which was too bad because they could have been. I mean, they're already one of my favorite bands, but only 2 really great albums, I think, out of what they could have done. I mean, I think of like the Beatles. If they would have kept going, they could have been like another Beatles almost. I think they were that good. But anyways, so yeah. So in saying that, yeah, it's still a solid album. Still, Byrds are some of the best harmony vocals of all time. I love the folk rock sound. Like I said, Turn 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 is one of my favorite songs of the '60s. So good. And all the other songs are pretty solid. The only really bad one, I think, is Oh Susanna, the very last song. Oh Susanna, very famous song. And they do a cover version. It's terrible. I think that's the only one I would say is really bad. The rest are actually quite good. Like I said, I like Bob Dylan's "There Times Are Changing." There's a pretty good cover song with Bob Dylan. A song that I like, the original as well. Like I said, I think Gene Clark is probably the best out of the group as far as songwriting and singing. So I really enjoy his music in here. So I say, yeah, it's very solid. It's not as good as the first album, which will come later on my list, but still a solid album if you like 60s sound, if you like harmonies. It's a great harmony album. So saying that, I'll go to my top 3 songs. Number 3 is "Set You Free," which is a Gene Clark original, and Gene Clark sings it. Song about kind of breaking up with a girl, and basically the tone is, "I'm gonna set you free." Kind of a nice way of saying I'm breaking up with you. It's not working out. You're free. Anyways, it's really good. I really enjoy the song. I love Gene Clark's vocals, and he kind of is good at these kind of songs, these nice breakup songs, I think. Number 2 is "It Won't Be Long," which is a Jim and Gwen song that he wrote and he lead sings. And it's got great guitar. It's some of the best guitar work, I think, on the album is on this song. I really love the guitar work on here. And then number 1, of course, I talked about it the whole time. It has to be "Turn, Turn, Turn." Of course, love that's from the Bible. That's pretty awesome. It's from Ecclesiastes. When I found that out as a kid, I had to go into Ecclesiastes and read Ecclesiastes and go, "Oh yeah, it's in the Bible." Like, that's so cool. That's such a great song from the Bible, or it came from Scripture. Yeah, it's just got some of the best harmonies you ever hear out of a band. It's got amazing harmonies, and the guitar work is really good, I think. It's just one of the great '60s songs is "Turn, Turn, Turn," anyways, and that really helps this album. So that's my review of number 4, number 3 on my list with the Beatles and "Turn, Turn, Turn." So I'll come back with finishing up the bottom 10 of my list. And so I hope you are listening to these albums as I'm telling you. I hope that you can, comment on what you think, if they are good albums or not. Or especially, I know I'm going to get some comments about "With the Beatles," because a lot of Beatle fans out there probably have some opinions on that album. So I enjoy reading any comments, any opinions, any discussions on these albums and what songs you like the best, or if you like any of them. And thank you for liking, subscribing, and listening to my channel or watching my channel. I appreciate you all and take care.